Yeah, I'll take them. What the heck?
News Channel 13 live at 6 starts right now.
No, Pownell Planning Commission starts right now.
Right now. That's not all bad. Hey, what are you gonna do?
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pownell Planning Commission meeting for June 3rd, 2025. Going to start with our board member roll call.
James.
Jim Winchester.
John Bashy.
Fred Miller.
Stacy Boxer.
Brian Harris.
David Powell.
Next is approval of the agenda. You all have your agenda in front of you.
Move to approve.
That's not.
We have one here.
I don't have one. No big deal. Oh, you weren't here last week.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't here. Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes for May 20th Planning Commission meeting. Is that the one that we tabled? Or
That's one on the table, I think.
No.
this is the one that we just did
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago. Okay,
15th was only tabled. I forgot to add that to the agenda.
right.
If you want to amend the approval of the agenda and approve those minutes, you can.
What was the date on that?
April
six.
15th.
6.
Oh,
June 6th or May 6th?
And then the 22nd are the two.
So it was May 6th.
May 6th was the one that you.
May.
I thought you tabled the 415 ones that might be on the list.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't
I
remember.
correct.
Yeah, the ones that we tabled were, when I wasn't here, John ran it.
Yeah, it was just last
That
meeting.
was-
We didn't have
Yeah, because we didn't have a forum.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we didn't.
yeah, so that would be May 6th, right? Okay. So I have to do anything with that, just.
I'll move to approve the minutes of May 6th.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so minutes of May 20th? You've all seen the minutes? They were emailed. Not sure.
I abstained from it.
You weren't here, James wasn't here.
Yeah.
It's just,
You had enough?
there was four of us,
Yeah, that's what it was.
yeah, so
I moved the agenda.
you have a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Stacy seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstained.
Okay, so now we're moving on to our guests. BCRC, what was your name?
I'm Samantha Page.
Samantha?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, and I'm joined on Zoom by my colleague Nick Dias.
Hi, Nick.
Aye.
There.
Okay. And then, some slides.
So I didn't specify on our agenda, this is future land use mapping review and discussion with BCRC.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Is that visible on Zoom too? It is not. Oh, okay, I didn't, I'll share.
A lot of buttons.
Yeah, all the buttons.
A lot of buttons.
Okay, now. Is it?
It looks like it's working on it's not there. There we go. Now it's going.
Okay, it's okay.
Got a lag.
All this linking
Okay,
paper.
that'll do. Okay, so I'm Samantha Page, Nick's on Zoom. We have been visiting with all of the municipalities in our region to talk with them about this future land use mapping process. So thanks for having us here tonight. I'll be giving a little bit of background on why we're doing this. This came out of Act 181 that the legislature approved last year, so it's almost a year old. And out of that act, there were a number of changes that affect how we do our job as the Regional Planning Commission. And part of that includes changing how we make a regional map for our plan. And so I also brought a draft of what that section of the map looks like in Pownell that I'm hoping to get your feedback on. And at the end of, I'll give a little bit of background and then we can look at the map and start to have a conversation about that. But you're also, we can continue to have that conversation after tonight. So
There's an existing map.
it's a draft, yeah, I have a draft and I have hard copies that I'll share
Okay.
at the end of the slideshow, but.
Thank you.
Okay, so Act 181, you might have heard of as the Act 250 reform bill, and it does include some changes to how Act 250 works throughout the state. It also includes changes to the designation program. So Pownell has 3 designated village centers, and going forward, the process for adjusting those boundaries and potentially adding any centers will be changed because of this legislation. And so it'll now be part of this like regional mapping process as well. And then, as I mentioned, this Act 181 changed some of how we do our regional planning work. So there's this new mapping process. It also changes how we do community engagement, and then it included this requirement to set housing targets in our regional plan. So we are sort of working on incorporating these changes, and we are doing a regional plan update that we plan to adopt next summer. So this is like all kind of in the lead up to that. Just to give a little bit more context on what the regional map is compared to other types of maps that you have in your planning documents. We currently have a future land use map in our regional plan. It has like 4 main categories. I think it's got village, urban, rural, and forest as these like big land use categories. And we use that to get a big picture of how land use might look at a regional scale. So being able to kind of compare land uses across the municipalities in our region. And going forward now, because of this act, all of the regional planning commissions throughout the state are going to use the same land use categories. So we're going to use the same 10 categories as Windsor and Windham counties and Addison and Chittenden and everyone in the state, so that we can have more consistent language in land use at a regional level. But this regional map is not the same as your local municipal plan land use map, and that your local map doesn't have to change. So this doesn't require you to change your local land use map. It doesn't require you to change your zoning map. Those can continue to operate exactly the way they are. This is so that we're complying with the law. And if you see the map and you feel like it is a good representation of your town, and when you go to update your town plan, you want to use it as a reference point or a starting point, we welcome that and we'd be happy to support you in that, but it's not in any way a requirement. So I just want to make that really clear up front.
There's no chance that something on the regional map would supersede.
No, yeah, sorry, well, I'm shaking my head for the no, so and in fact, most of what the regional map has doesn't really have any regulatory power. The only way that it really does are in these centers and some of the surrounding village areas where you could treat them as these designated centers, so you could get benefits for those areas. And some towns will opt to have Act 250 exemptions in some of those areas. And those are kind of regulatory impacts, but otherwise it's really just to give kind of a picture of the area, and it wouldn't change development rights or restrictions in those areas. And that's kind of a good segue to the categories. So there's 10 categories. There, you don't have to include all of them in every municipality. This is just like all the categories for the whole state. And sort of broadly, at the top, there are more of the growth area categories. So like centers where there are historic, mixed use and traditional development centers, where there are civic assets, maybe some economic activity, but they're pretty broadly, they're very general. So historic centers are welcome there. Planned growth areas are really the highest density areas in the region. So Manchester and Bennington, maybe Arlington will have planned growth areas, but what we drafted so far, there aren't any planned growth areas in Pownell. Village areas are kind of like a similar sense where there's historical settlement, maybe there's one utility or another. So in your case, there's some wastewater availability. Then there's room for what's called a village area. So they're sort of lower density, but there's still some room for housing or commercial activity around your centers. Transition infill areas are parts of town where there's potential for some development, and especially what we call infill development. So like trying to fill in where there might be a lot of structures along the roadside. And so there's already been the start of an investment in an area, and maybe you want to see it grow a little bit more in a strategic way. Resource-based recreation are more like large-scale ski resorts. So I think in this region, we just have one in Bromley. Enterprise areas are kind of like industrial uses. So they might have higher economic activity. They're related to like resource extraction. And then there's 3 different kinds of rural categories that are very similar, but they just sort of differ around what might be the most predominant land use. So rural general is like the rural residential areas of town where there might still be some working lands and some natural features, but it's mostly housing or sort of low density commercial uses or other mixed uses. Rural agricultural and forestry are parts of town where there is a lot of working lands, whether that's active farming or historical agriculture or the potential for continued agricultural use or forestry uses. One of the ways that we try to identify those areas is based on land enrolled in the current use program. So if there's a big area of town that has land in the current use program, then that's one way that we've been trying to decide, okay, this is kind of in that category at this time. And then rural conservation are areas with significant natural resources. So maybe that's part of the land that's in Green Mountain National Forest or the town forest, or it's otherwise has a conservation easement. Maybe it has wetlands. Maybe it doesn't have any of those things, but it's surrounded by land that does. And again, kind of to your question, that category doesn't mean that it is conserved. So it wouldn't prohibit someone from developing on that land if your zoning allows for it. But it's just kind of a reflection of the general sense of that area. Or if your zoning does sort of discourage development in certain parts of town, we tried to look to that as we developed our draft as well. So again, there's some regulatory impacts include these exemptions for Act 250 that towns would opt into. There are some statutory requirements to meet tier 1A and tier 1B, and then most, like, first and foremost would be the town's interest in those things. So if Pownell was interested in having like strategic exemptions in a center area of town, we can have a conversation about that, but it's really based on what your own level of interest is in something like that. I think the upside would be encouraging housing in like the centers, your sort of designated village centers, and making that a little bit easier. But it's up to you. And then in terms of this sort of last line here, what the state is calling tier 3, those are areas of the state that where Act 250 will always be triggered no matter what. And that rule making is separate from the mapping that we're doing. So that's being developed at the state level, and the maps that we're making for our region don't inform that process right now. And then, as I mentioned, there's also changes to the designation program. So because Pownell has village centers established already, you would start at this step 2, which is kind of the middle option. So we have some towns in the region that don't have centers right now. And as part of this process, we've mapped some small centers around a historic structure and a school, like in Woodford, for example. They come in at step 1. Anyone with an existing center designation comes in at step 2. And then towns with existing downtowns or that want to sort of build out their centers a little bit more into a downtown would be at step 3. And these are
Platinum certified team.
Hey, Nick, can you hear anything?
So G has you covered.
In Pownell Center, we expanded it a little bit to the north, and that includes Dollar General now. This is just a starting point, so you know Pownell best. If there if we extended it in a way that doesn't make sense, and you're like, that's really wrong, that doesn't feel like part of a center, then please let me know. Or on the other side, if you're like, why didn't you include that neighborhood to the west? Then that would also be really good to know. Like if there are parts of Pownell around these purple areas that do feel like they're part of a sort of center in that neighborhood, then that would be good to know.
So, you extended some, you didn't subtract any.
No, we can subtract it, yeah. And then the light pink is this village area category, which in this case mostly reflects where you have municipal wastewater service. So, it's sort of a combination of where that wastewater extends and then where your zoning village districts extended to as well. And so it's sort of a reflection of, like, maybe it's not quite as compact as the center, but it still has kind of relatively higher development in that area surrounding the center. There's some infrastructure there that makes it a more attractive place to have a home or a store.
And just to chime in here, this is like the edges of this pink area should reflect generally where it feels like the village ends, because Vermont is all about like kind of clean lines on the edges of villages where you enter a village and you know you're there. So this is kind of what this reflects what we think is like what feels like the start of the village. Noting that you have to exclude areas down in the river corridors, so these pink areas will have a little bit of some weird edges, as you see over on the your westernmost of the village centers has a big kind of green gap in there, and that's reflecting your flood risk.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Nick. So, yeah, while your village area and some of the historic development in like sort of to the west of the, what do you call it? Pownell South? North, south, what do you call that?
Just Pownell Village.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
Pownell Village, that's Pownell
and where the
Center,
racetrack is.
and that's North Pownell.
Okay,
Thank you. So yeah, like this area sort of, there are areas where you can see the pinks have been separated from each other, and that's where the river corridor runs through. And right now, the law says that if there aren't river corridor protection bylaws in the town, then that's the requirement to exclude them from the village area mapping. I'll also just note the purple areas are enterprise, which is that sort of industrial or extractive use. So right now we have the wastewater treatment facility, this large solar facility in North Pownell, the Mac molding site, and then zooming out also where the transfer station is. We started by placing those in the enterprise areas. And then the other like big thing that I'll note is this transition area that we drafted between Pownell Village and the southern border, where the racetrack is, and there's some housing and some commercial activity along the side of 7. And it just seems like a part of town where maybe there's some interest in thinking about how to see a different version of Pownell in that area, and maybe, I don't know if you started having conversations about that, or even if you haven't, if there's any sense of wanting to transition it to something else, or just sort of see it develop in a different way or in a more cohesive way, then putting it in that category is kind of like putting a pin in the map and saying, like, we're going to come back to this. We want to continue talking about this and see what we can do to fill it in a little bit more.
So that's the only transition area of the transition.
Can you think of other parts of town that you would like to see?
We may, as we discussed.
Yeah. And so just on that note, we're here tonight, but we fully expect that you'll want to take some time to look the maps over, and so feel free to, we can talk more and answer any questions, but you can continue to look at them at your next meetings, and we'll be continuing to tweak them through the summer and just want to have things kind of buttoned up heading into the fall. So that's kind of our timeline for these.
Thank you. You explain that waterway thing you were talking about? I didn't quite understand that.
Oh, the river corridor.
Yes.
Yeah, so so in the law, a lot of the categories for the land use, the different land use categories, they're pretty broad, but some of them have really specific criteria for what you can and can't include. And the village area in the light pink has specific criteria, including the wastewater infrastructure or water or soils that would be suitable to septic. So that's part of why we included those. And then on the other hand, where there is an indication that the river flows through that area, we have excluded it because Pownell doesn't have river corridor bylaws right now. And yeah, Nick, what's your advice on river corridor?
Can you just repeat that question? The audio feed cut out there for a minute.
Wetlands.
Do you have any advice on how a town could think about adopting river corridor bylaws, like what the sort of trade-offs are for taking that on?
Yeah, so I thought about this a lot in my past life in Arlington, where river corridors were like one of the big discussions of our planning commission, and the logic always is you can either regulate this now and limit the amount of damage exposure that you have to, say, new infrastructure or existing infrastructure, limit your town's flood losses, particularly in these small flood events. A lot of these areas are prone to like spring melt seasonal flooding. So small things that aren't going to qualify for a disaster that's going to get people relief. And these are some of them are in floodplains that encourage people to carry flood insurance. A lot of the river corridors are not. A lot of them are handling things like smallish up mountain streams that like to jump around, or have houses right up on them that are in many cases likely to flood. Quintessential river corridor in the county is the Kelly Stand in Sunderland that had its giant washouts and people's properties lost. But it has trade-offs. you need to think about, okay, are we going to regulate this now and prevent certain types of building? A lot of this is going to be preventing like smaller outbuildings that aren't really well secured, and kind of applying floodplain style regulations to areas that aren't down the bottom of the river valleys. So you'll want to think about that. You'll want to just look at your maps that have the river corridors. We can point you in the right direction to that kind of mapping and think, is this going to affect us meaningfully? If it's not going to affect many properties meaningfully, there's not a lot of trade-off to adopting river corridors. If there are a lot of properties that are affected, and I suspect Pownell is absolutely one of those towns that has a lot of properties affected, you'll want to think very carefully about whether to do this.
Sorry, Nick, we lost you for a while. We heard you mention the Kelly stand in Sunderland, but then we lost everything.
Okay, so the gist is this: you'll want to think about like take a look at the maps that have river corridors on them. You can go on and pull that from the A&R website, and then think about and really look at what properties are affected. If you don't have many properties that are heavily affected by this, the trade-off for adopting river corridors is very limited. If you have a lot, and I believe Pownell does, it's something you are going to want to be very, very careful about considering, knowing the state is going to be doing some work on this in the future. So towns are very much encouraged to do this sooner rather than later, because we know the state's going to eventually do some work to restrict buildings in the river corridors at the state level. So if you think that's coming down the line, there's not as much trade-off in the short term of making sure people aren't building in those really sensitive, narrow valleys and particularly right up on the streams in those narrow valleys where it's like they're asking for their house to wash out. And so think about that. Look at your maps, really carefully consider it, and then if you want to move forward with that, there's plenty of really good models to use to effectively copy paste into your bylaw.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that to say that when I send these files in the next couple of days to follow up, I'll also include a version with the river corridors on it so you can see that in comparison to this map. And we'll include a link to the state's website, which has the model bylaws that Nick just mentioned. So if you do decide you want to pursue it, they're basically a starting template is written for you. And there'll be a lot more information there too to kind of chew on.
So you're saying like the track right now, because you don't have it on here, but that under the enterprise or not going to be under enterprise, like industrial area?
That's sort of the inconsistent thing is that it only impacts the village area. So the enterprise area, if the river corridor overlaps with it, then there's.
Yeah, and I believe the river corridor goes almost right up to the building now.
Yeah.
When they expanded it. I know we looked at it before on the select board side, and it was like development down there was like so drastically limited.
Well, anything done now would it necessarily have to be new development, considered new development, or pre-existing? It's already been developed.
I mean, as far as using a site, what do we do about trying to get something in there because I was looking at that as or industrial when we were doing the mapping before that.
Well, I think right now, if I understood correctly, because we don't have bylaws against it, we're defaulting to what the state has. And if I'm correct in what Nick and Samantha were saying, the state is going to be cramming more down onto smaller municipalities, whether we want it or not. So basically they're saying, well, if they're going to do it, we should just do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
My feeling is if the state's going to do it anyway, well, then let the state do it.
That was my logic in Arlington. And to this day, Arlington does not have river corridor bylaws. I can say we were relatively loud with the legislature about the fact that we were dissatisfied with their attempts to do this. But importantly, it's your choice. given where Pownell is in its conversations, it may well be something that wait and see for the state is absolutely the right call. If I were in your shoes, I would probably be right there, because it's very much a story of you have a lot to gain from being very careful about where you're allowing your development, but still having a lot of flexibility. And you guys are well positioned to make sure that if they do come down, it's still going to be a number of years. You still have some play, and it really doesn't affect you a whole lot. In as much as if that's the area of concern, it's better to do it piecemeal rather than have a town-wide one-size-fits-all solution to river corridors. You can always try to use your mapping to handle like river corridor issues elsewhere where you may not want development, and kind of have it both ways in two different areas.
Have insurance, then buyer beware. It's on you at that point.
Right.
I don't have any sympathy for that person.
College did a study on it, and they thought the best thing was recreation, and things like Lollapalooza, which was very successful.
Yeah.
So that's what they're talking. They're not talking about building there. On the other side of the road, yes, there's 2 lots to ball field,
Yeah, those.
and they're high ground.
Yeah, those wouldn't really be affected.
Right. And
But I know when they were talking about the other part where the track is,
Yeah.
I think about the most advanced thing that you could put in there would maybe a 3-season campground.
Yeah.
Like very limited permanent use buildings, that whole property.
Well, I mean, even like if somebody came along and said, hey, I want to put a, 200,000 square foot building over there so we can put a trucking storage area or a trucking hub right there or something like that.
It would pretty much not be allowed at this point. I don't think you'd get it through Act 250. Act 250 would shut it down.
Yeah.
They would stop it. That's what I mean, like the state regulation side of it, like with Act 250. Like it doesn't really matter what we have on the local level. The state's gonna override it. They're gonna do what they want to do.
we can't find it.
I hate saying it like that, and I hate being a pessimist about it, but
No problem.
like the local control is disappearing. And I mean, even Nick is kind of hinting at that. The state's gonna be working on stuff. So, I don't know. My feeling is we don't have any regulations against it other than what we already have, and then what the state has. I'm fine leaving it like that. If the state makes us put stuff in our bylaws, then so be it. But
I don't think.
I don't.
Anyway.
I don't want to limit. My point.
Right, yeah, no, I'm trying not to limit anything. I want to see something happen. We gotta start to find something.
Yeah, but you can't find the guy. The guy's not.
No, I honestly, I think your only hope is like, at this point, like they decide to sell one day, but I mean, why would they? They've got the solar field, paying their taxes, so.
Yeah.
They have no incentive.
No incentive at all.
Wait for the state to mandate the cleanup and the state step in, take it over.
Okay.
But that's getting way off the beaten path on this.
It is.
And we beat that horse to death. There's nothing we can do as far as the racetrack goes anyway. I mean,
I like to do solar development in a flood zone. I think it's great.
Unless it floods. Yeah.
They're above ground. Let's build them higher. That's all. Just go a little higher.
Oh, my, yeah.
You can put them up on poles.
Hey, Mr. Solar, if he wants to do it, he'll do it.
Mhm.
Enough said.
anyway, I get off my soapbox.
No, it's good discussion. Yeah, so we can just kind of like leave it here and I'll send you all the materials that we shared tonight. And if you guys keep talking about it, if you have questions, feel free to let us know. It can be down to like the parcel. So I'll send a version with parcels on it. And if you have questions about specific locations and why it's in one category or the other. This is definitely a draft, like we're under no illusion that we got it right on the first track, so,
Mhm.
yeah.
So-
we really- Yeah, Nick,
Yeah,
please.
no, if we could give you a couple of little things to like look at and focus on. First is looking at the edges of those village center boundaries and making sure they're exactly covering the right parcels that you want, and making sure that is what you feel like is the center of the villages. And then checking those village the village area, the pink area boundaries to say, is this where those end? Is this where the village ends? And then thinking, are there any other sites that you feel like need to be in either that transition category or don't quite feel, or like industrial sites that we might have missed? That those are the couple of things that like are high priorities that have been flagged by other towns as part of our review process that we know are like that we need your local knowledge and your eyes on it to really know we're going to get it right.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
having us in here today.
Yep.
It's.
Why not?
I'll be able to- Yeah, yeah, I'll answer, yeah, I'll update you.
Thank you.
And then I'm just gonna leave one more flyer. So as I said, we're doing this whole regional plan update, and Mark Berger, Callie made some sort of general flyers about Act 181 and the impacts. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't bring enough for everyone, but just like one other piece of information.
It might be.
Now, this is next year's plan.
Yeah, so this is for next year.
It's one we should put up there.
We're doing kind of this municipality, these municipality pieces, and then we'll be doing more general public engagement this summer, including Celebrate Pownell Day. We'll have a table there to talk to people just about the region in general. It won't be quite as like technical as this. So we're looking forward to just talking to people about your communities and how we can kind of shape a plan for the whole region that points everyone in the right direction, or not points everyone in the direction they want to see their communities go. So that's what I've got for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on DRP is gonna depend on what we do on here, so.
Yeah,
Put anything in it, any extras?
for next year.
State's gonna.
Any extra?
That was honestly, that was my takeaway from it.
Yeah.
Was that it doesn't matter if whether we do it or not, the state crams through legislation. Whatever we have is overruled by the state.
Right.
The most we can do is we can restrict it further than the state. I'm not for that.
No.
The state's already restrictive enough.
Except that,
Well, they're gonna lessen
designate where the village border boundaries are, we get to,
Yeah.
within those categories, we get to do that.
Tier 3 says it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I know what you're saying, Brian, because if you're,
Like to me, if
say, hey, we want to go all the way to the river with it, they're gonna say, no, you can't, and then.
like if you look at, like, to me, if you look at Pownell Center, where
Yeah,
they have where Route 346 comes down the hill past the firehouse and the fire station down to the intersection of Main Street, 346, Church or Center Street there. I would almost rather see the village center extend across the road and go up through over toward the Legion and have the Legion be incorporated into the town center.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And have that incorporated with it. Like if you're gonna expand the town center, let's move it over where one of the high points for the town is.
Right.
And that we can do.
Up along.
And that's what I'm saying. If we're gonna expand it, I say we expand it over that way.
Land Road, to, you bring it up to the old Route 7, up into there.
Yeah, pretty much. You can go right over, I mean, heck, you could cross over Route 7. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why Jimmy's and Pownell Pals and
Right.
Ladbroke Inn shouldn't be incorporated into
Right.
it. That's part of the village. I mean, those are three good businesses in town. Why
Right.
shouldn't they be able to benefit from any added benefit?
Oh, sure, absolutely, I think so.
Hey.
I agree.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I think we can expand all these a little bit further from where they're at.
And it's a change. You don't have to worry about any of the flood regulations, so we don't, I just don't want to see us get bogged down in the weeds, wasting tens of thousands of dollars contracting with BCRC to draft regulation for zoning bylaw changes that aren't needed, that the state's gonna push through down on us anyway.
Mhm.
I don't see the benefit to it.
Mhm.
And as far as like expanding over, I mean, their one little proposed change that's outside the crosshatched area.
Where is that?
That's why I'm trying to get orientation on what that is. That's,
Where the medicals.
Yeah, I'm not even seeing that at all in there. You're talking about the,
so down in Pownell,
Yeah.
Pownell Center,
yeah,
where the dark purple is, you have one small section right in the middle where it's not crosshatched, meaning it doesn't have the little black lines through it.
oh,
It looks
yeah,
like it incorporates at least a part of one piece of property in one tiny corner lot. I'm sure there's more there if
So we
you
have to get a blow up.
get the
of that.
better map,
Yeah.
but
Blueberry Hill and,
You're talking on the north end, right?
no, south end,
Well, west end, right?
down here, right there,
The west side of
Of
it.
south or village?
right there.
Oh, of this one here,
Right there.
okay, yeah, yeah.
So that's their proposed expansion.
This is two.
which is.
So,
This is-
because
this
the
is-
crosshatch is existing village designation where
Yeah.
the black lines go through the dark purple.
Yeah.
Anything not in those crosshatch is the proposed expansion. So
And then this,
if I understood it correctly,
Yeah.
this is literally the only expansion they're proposing down through there.
Right.
well, you got a little bit lower too, the little south.
This bottom here.
Yeah, the whole bottom is too.
It's the library.
The orange part,
not sure.
But just above the
the orange
orange,
part is the transition infill area.
just above this right here, they got this is all proposed. There's no lines to this section.
Oh, all right. All the water in through there threw me off. I didn't realize there was
Yes.
black lines in here.
Yeah.
But still, that's gonna be, that part there is well outside any floodplain.
Yes.
is Main Street right here.
I need a better map.
Yeah, but on the north,
Yeah.
on the north end of that, what you're talking about, they got it all for village area.
Yeah.
Why is that all
That's what I'm
not?
saying is like, to me, I would take a large portion of that part that's already marked village area
Yeah,
and I would incorporate that as village center.
right. Yeah, you got all them little stuff up through there. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm missing
Which is-
something, but I think there's more benefits to designate. So might as well include that with it.
So.
Which I think if my understanding is correctly, it opens you up to more municipal grants on state and federal levels. So it's,
That's a plus.
yeah, it gives more opportunities.
Are there any downsides?
I don't know, like for that, we'd have to ask more pointed questions.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I'd like to find that out.
Well, like I say, village center section is the same way. They got all the village area. You can expand, why not expand village center into those village areas? And up at the top, so.
Yeah, I mean, because they're talking about moving it up through Dollar General.
Right, but it's a small.
I mean, there's no reason the Pownell Mall shouldn't be part of
we
it.
go past Dollar General, actually.
You should go to the top of that hill, I mean, we got business.
Yeah, it should, yeah, honestly, I don't see any reason why you should be able to go to the top of the hill, take it right up through the roost.
Right.
Yeah.
The business all the way up to the storage units right there,
Yeah,
right under the pipeline.
Help with development of that area, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got the fields that are right.
Sitting right down here.
I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding the way the rules are written, but I thought I understood it that village center designations
I think we
give you more
I
opportunity.
think we have just kind of transitioned out of the future land use mapping review and discussion, and we're into the vision statement. Part of our discussion.
Different than.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer the more organic discussion
Yeah.
format of it.
Yeah, that's good. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, if it's gonna increase our ability for funding stuff, why not?
I think maybe that's worth asking more pointed questions over. it.
Right, yeah.
I'm not any expert on it. These are just my opinions, and I'm not trying to speak for all of you.
I know we worry a lot about the river corridor thing, but really, most of that river corridor is agricultural land
Yeah.
anyway.
And honestly, that's about all the floodland's gonna be good for anyway, is agricultural land where if it floods over for a couple of days, as long as the crops don't wash away, they can take a flood.
Yeah.
Corn can take being flooded,
It's already
you know,
developed
underwater
for
for a day.
whatever enterprises are going on there, housing or small businesses.
Yeah.
They're already there.
Yeah, and they already know the dangers.
Yeah, right.
And I kind of feel like insurance regulations are gonna pretty much take care of that.
Yeah.
No such thing as flooded zones.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it was discussed before when they changed the state through A&R there. It was mentioned the possibility that you could end up seeing eminent domain to buy people out to kind of gently move them out of the floodplains.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, unless the state and the feds are willing to foot that bill, I don't see any way the town of Pownell is gonna buy, just throwing a number out, 30
Yeah, no.
properties along the river corridor.
Yeah, no, they don't
to the
have
tune
it
of
here.
millions of dollars to buy people
I don't
out.
want anybody knocking on my door saying, pack my bags because
Yeah.
they're gonna save my life. It's like, no, it's all right. I'll stay right here.
Yeah,
I'll wait till it happens.
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks. Sorry.
Because to me, at that point, like, you start going into the weeds of like, oh, you got to get fair market value. Well, if the state and the town have already designated you floodplain, your land's worthless, you can't build there anyway, suddenly your property value's through the toilet.
Zero.
So your $200,000 house, they say, we'll give you 30 grand for it, that's fair market value, you got to go.
Mhm.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, no.
yeah, over my cold dead body.
Mhm.
So no, I am completely against that.
Yeah. Well, you're down in that area. You're down next.
Yeah, but I'm technically high enough to where I don't
You're
have
up
to
on the
worry
hill.
about getting
Yeah.
flood
I'm
insurance.
up
I
on
had
the
that, I had that fight with an insurance company years ago. Because they tried to say because I border the river, I needed flood insurance. I'm like, look at the elevation map, 70 feet above the river.
Yeah.
If I flood, the least of your worries is my property.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yep.
Well, it'll be that discussion. We're gonna have to.
But, yeah, I'm glad we have these maps. I think they're gonna be a good resource for us to.
Yes.
Looking forward to the digital one where I can zoom in.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah, it is.
better overlay,
Yeah.
like 3 individualized maps.
That would be great. And I think
We had that.
We still have some.
When we designed these village areas, we had big maps.
Big maps.
We
Yeah.
tried-
Yeah, there are
Put it all on the
better
table.
maps.
In the planning.
We have some stuff on it already.
Yeah.
Did she give us a copy of that slideshow? Or did she just show it to us? Like, I don't have a copy of it in my email.
It's loaded on the
Yeah,
computer.
we didn't get a copy of it, sometimes it automatically saves to the laptop, I'll reach out to her and ask.
Okay, I'm just curious because I wanted to have a copy of their definitions of the new designations.
I'll reach out to her right now.
All right, thank you.
Well, the 10.
Yeah, they gave a brief definition of what each one is. I'll take the whole slideshow, obviously, but
Yeah.
normally when CRC does a presentation, that will be provided with either upfront or at the end, we'll all get a copy of it. That's why I was asking.
Yep. Cool.
We have maps of individual sites here.
Oh, yeah, that was when they did their proposed for what we could change for the different criteria. Is that the one you're looking at?
I think there's gonna be a lot we could change.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What do we got next?
We're
Kind of discussing that now.
in this right now.
Okay.
Yeah, take control of your meeting, Fred. Shut Harris down.
No, it's okay. No, I really wasn't saying anything other than I'm right on with the agenda because we just kind of naturally transition into it.
Yeah.
That's basically what I was saying.
All right, so you guys had started working on
Yeah, we-
vision statement?
We've, read, the opening section of the town plan. We're going through that. I was looking at where, so they mentioned, our vision,
Yeah,
and it really
Right.
didn't give much of a clear vision. It did a lot of like pages of repetitive language.
history. Yeah, it does give a lot of
It
history.
was redundant in a couple places too.
Okay,
The history is great. I love having it there, but I don't think it's vision. That's,
Right.
no,
yeah.
no, I think,
Where we were,
I think if like, I'm perfectly fine having the history in them, but I think if anything, you should have like for vision for the town, be like spitballing, forward progress minded as far as being economically open-minded with clear knowledge of where our history was. And then you can have a subsection of history of Pownell if you want.
Right.
and what basically we also got to where, what really do we, individually, what do we envision?
Be.
And do we want it to radically change? We want it to radically stay the same, with some changes, that's what we were just trying to like bouncing ideas back and forth a little bit.
Like for me, like I've said it before and I'll say it again, I would love to see 346 and Route 7 corridor opened up economically. Like I know some people disagree with the thought of big box stores moving in or even small regional outlet type stores, but honestly, that's what draws your traffic in and that's what creates anchor points. And that's what makes an area look more attractive to future business. Be like, holy shit, well, look at that. There's a Dunkin' Donuts in there and they do a fair bit of business. I guess it isn't so bad down through there.
But
Yeah.
my thought on big box type stores is I don't know if they would do the volume of business that they need to be here. I don't know if Dollar General is actually.
I think depending on what it would be, obviously, we don't have any control over that. All we could do is try to, make it more enticing. But I mean, we're already, relatively speaking, lower tax than say a Bennington or well, not so much Williamstown now because they do their tax structure a little bit differently in Massachusetts. But I mean, other than maybe we can try to streamline some of our approval processes for, permits and whatnot, but we already don't really have much in the way of permitting.
Right. Well, we don't grow unless we get more businesses. We
Yeah,
have to have something come in to help.
yeah.
Don't get more.
You got a pot place down there.
Right. I mean, it could,
Well, that's why I say 7 and 346. You get on average about 20,000 cars a day.
Yeah.
Down 7, depending on the day. Obviously, holiday weekends, you get more,
All coming back from the.
right. So, well,
We are right next door to a massive college town, which we've said before is pretty much immune to economic downturns. What's one thing they don't allow down in Williamstown?
That's what you gotta do here.
Outlet stores.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I say,
Tattoo parlors.
well, I know.
There we go. We'll say, yeah.
But my thought is like, you have a lot of the niche stores down through there, which great for them.
Yeah.
Not every college student can afford to stop at a higher end, boutique. I'm not saying, everybody down there is like that, but I'm just saying, my thought is
Have here is a post office though,
we do have a post office.
and a lot of people come here.
oh, they do.
They do come here and
Come for the
because they
post
don't want to
office.
go on Spring Street.
Yeah.
And that's an impossible place to go to.
Yeah, I mean, the wife and I have been down through there a couple of times. It's not for me.
No, it's not for
You
anybody,
can't park anywhere.
Right.
but the college wants, and that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
because we need the property
7 o'clock.
taxes on all those houses. That's it. We don't need the people that are gonna need our services, because we don't have the service.
Mhm.
We don't have the budget for the services. We just need the property taxes on those properties.
Yeah, it's like, if you want to grow,
All the need for building that we hear about is all about, that's all it's about.
yeah. So, and I mean, quite honestly, if you have clustered unit housing,
You're gonna need a lot of services.
yeah, you're not. Theoretically, if everybody in there works and they're traveling for work, yes, they're bringing in money. But if they're not, there is no benefit to the community. None. The money being brought in is the money that's getting pulled out in taxes.
Right.
It's the money that the municipality is now having to shell out extra to support services, to support that.
The motels. are-
I'm more than happy to help.
Motels are classic.
I'm charitable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I don't,
We don't,
No.
we don't,
The motels are not.
there's a reason they put signs up at the state forest that say, don't feed the animals.
Oh, do they? Then the crow's knocking on my door saying, feed me, the son of a bitch.
I mean, again, that's,
That's.
we all,
That's
we all
personal
love,
opinion, and I'm sure I'll get crucified for it.
No.
well, we all love housing. We all want that stuff to happen, but to
I
make,
want responsible development. I don't want to just
Responsible.
put in crammed
right,
project housing, mass 6-foot or 6-story building with 300 units for the sake of saying, hey, look at what we did.
Right.
They're big, giant, ugly buildings. They don't fit the landscape of the town.
we're not gonna have Main Street
Yeah.
like that.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean,
we could have
you're gonna have a-
like, I would be perfectly fine if we had if this turned into Spring Street and you had little
Right.
shops.
Shops and all that stuff.
I'd be
Right.
perfectly happy with that.
Right.
The church bought the,
You could
trailer
build
park.
up,
Yeah,
right, you
they
could
did.
build up a little bit. We actually, I think the last time we had actually updated and raised the limit. So like, I think you could build up more than you could build out
Yeah.
on a lot of property. So we made,
On the local
we
level,
raised the
state
height.
level's already overruling that. That's what
That's the problem.
that's what their 181, is it 181?
Yeah.
Yes,
This is what their 181 changes are.
right,
Is it bypasses Act 250 and it allows you to put in cluster housing. It allows you to take smaller properties as long as you have water and sewer.
Right.
And you can put more units in and go higher.
right.
Fine.
Mhm.
But we don't have those areas in town,
Right.
but very small subsection.
But but there is,
That won't
that's,
really apply to us.
right, that's the point. There is places we can put stuff in like that.
Yeah.
Not a problem. And some areas it may fit. But what I don't see is the businesses, just small businesses. So we have a bunch here. We got some down through the center here. The old Jaeger house, that could be something decent right there still. But
Down.
it's when if you fill those lots in with ability to put some small stores in, that's what's gonna start to bring them in. Just a little coffee shops, those little things that has been talked about for years now, a little coffee shop, a little washing machine place, place you can go do that. All these little things is what we gotta try to find a place for.
Washing
And
machine.
if we can't, if we don't have the room or we don't find a place, then we won't have them at all. We just gotta lay out a
The washing
place.
machine place though,
Yeah,
the lady down in North Pownell.
yeah, they were gonna try to do one, but it didn't have water flow.
Oh, Priscilla and them? Or are you talking down at True Value's old store?
Yeah, the other one down by the Legion. I
But
think.
I think if we're gonna set out to try to fix something, we gotta know what it is we're trying to fix,
Yeah.
Right.
to begin with. We don't want.
Yeah,
we don't wanna create a problem
there's
just so
there's a
it's
lot of ideas.
Yeah.
And it comes down to like, what do you want to do first?
fixed.
Mhm.
What-
Like if you want to do infrastructure expansion, well, that's
That's gonna cost.
big money.
Right.
Mhm.
What kind of investment are the taxpayers willing to absorb? I know me personally, not a lot.
Mhm.
So then the question arises to me, let's say big box, down 346 somewhere or whatever. Do they need to have public water and sewer in order to take care of all their
This
employees?
is where it goes back to like,
Well,
that's why I'm saying like,
Which is the egg.
technically, they don't
What
need,
happened to our appointment?
I don't think they
to see the
technically need the
sewage
public
system?
water. They would want, you'd want them to be on the
A
public
field
sewer.
trip. Yeah.
That could be the
Still doing
expansion
that?
part. If it was a big enough thing, I think we could get that. We could probably get funding to help with it along with them.
But it's
They're coming
chicken
in.
and egg thing because they're not gonna come and consider moving here unless that's their.
There's
form,
some
and yet
benefit to
We're not gonna put the money into that unless we have somebody coming. So we're kind of stuck a little.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying like what are you as a municipality willing to do?
Right.
And like, I'm perfectly fine examining where we have existing wastewater and trying to make municipal sewer available for a hookup.
Right.
Like obviously like a Dollar General isn't going to use as much wastewater as say a restaurant with 150 capacity seating.
Right.
Wastewater requirements are drastically different.
But see, that's where I think the town could work with that. We can get grants and stuff to help with it if we needed an.
Yeah, if we needed to
We
do.
could also work with
upgrade.
business coming in, say, listen, we're willing to help and do this. We need a little help from your side to say, we can expand our system. We could probably draw in enough to do that with between the person wanting to put it in and the town itself or, state funding. We could probably find that to expand, but we gotta have a place that they can do that too. We gotta have the ability for them to come into that. I don't think we'll get anything if we won't be able to expand if we don't have a place for them to come.
No, I think what you would end up needing is you would need some kind of economic outreach, like teams that can pull together the information packets, the traffic studies, the infrastructure study, kind of like what BCRC does.
Right.
But then actively go out and like court stores, be like, hey, we know this property here, coordinating with a property owner.
So I'm probably really uneducated about this, but think about the context of where Pownell is in relation to Williamstown and what they have and, what's attractive about Williamstown and Bennington and what they. To being, center of Bennington or something like that. I mean, Bennington.
Well, that's why, I'm okay with houses get built. But what I don't want to see is like, I love the urban view. The last thing I want to do is I don't want to look out at that mountain range. Now, obviously that's all town property over through there now, but I don't want to look over there and see halfway up the mountain is now clear cut.
Yeah.
And there's just cluster housing to the mass border.
Yeah.
I don't think you're allowed.
Not gonna see it in
Hair
there.
cutting.
So I
Well,
think
no,
that's-
but I'm just using that as.
So everybody not make it that
So
long.
that's I guess what I'm talking about is that we want to have responsible development.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a big, suddenly we're going to throw all kinds of boxes in here and restaurants. It's not going to happen.
No,
Not gonna happen.
Do that incremental growth, starting with what we have
No. You don't know what that number is?
No.
Darcy
probably would because we have the pump station right there.
Yeah, the pump's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because using those gallons, I'm wondering how much is usage, how much of that's actually going into the system?
Yeah. I mean,
Filling up and filling jugs and all that stuff too, you know? That's a lot of the usage might not be in the system.
I would love to get the numbers from that pump station to actually see what the actual sewage push is versus my water.
I mean, you got flushing, you got washing of dishes, that kind of stuff is, but how many people fill up a little pool or something and how many just fill their water bottles? I mean, you're gonna have a lot of water usage, but not so much sewage.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wonder what that pump number is, because there's a pump right there that pumps it out, so should have a pump number on it, how many gallons went out.
Yeah, we can find out.
Like, to me, like, those are just some of the ideas that we, like, the town could, like, those are just little things that, like, over the course of time, you can gradually increase capacity in some areas for infrastructure without a drastic hit to the taxpayers.
And it's gonna be infrastructure on the town.
Yeah.
That's your harder for you and enjoy the rent benefits of being a Sunmark credit union member. You could
Efficiency and reduce your energy bills, protecting the inside of your home against the cold of winter and the heat of
Revenge right there, and it never.
Well, hello, guys. First of all, I can't know if you can hear me because the whole system is just totally messed up. If you guys can hear me, one guy just raise your hand because I can get a kind of a picture, but I think it's frozen. But in any case, you guys have touched on every single aspect of this whole planning commission vision of Pownell, but maybe tonight you guys go home and maybe over the last 30 years, mark down what has changed in Pownell since 1990. It's the year that I came and I don't see any changes that have happened at all. We have a village center, we have a village North Bennington, we have a village center. I'm not sure how they can be designated villages because there's not too much activities, but I think we need to scrap everything and just start all over. Brian, I give you a lot of credit that you wanted to move the village center in the lower section of Pownell up Route 7.
Shows and dark things.
I think it's great. Unfortunately, I lost my video now, but
Yeah,
if you can
it
hear
just
me,
rebooted on us.
well, it's great. I mean, this has been the worst experience, but can you hear me now?
Yes.
Did you hear anything I said?
Yeah, we heard you.
Got up to congratulating Brian.
All right. I mean, I just think you guys are on the right track, but there's nothing that has happened in the past 30 years with our town plan. And I mean, I'm very concerned with what direction we want to go in because we seem to be in a section of we don't know where we want to go. I mean, we're not going to be village centers anywhere. We are a bedroom community. They're not going to come here for a coffee shop. They're going to come here. The contractors are going to come here and get a hot coffee. That's not going to make someone survive. All right. Economic development just came in. We have now a cannabis shop down in 346. We have a Vite shop up on Route 7. Hopefully those will bring in some destination people to Pownell, but I don't see it. We need to bring in not industrial because we're not going to get industrial here. We're not going to get warehouses here. We're not going to get a lot of stuff that you guys talk about. We need to bring in people to come live here. And I don't see anything wrong, Brian, with a complex that is well kept, that will house a lot of apartments and bring the people in. At that point, when they bring the people in, we will have sections of town that we could have as small shops. But until that happens, you're not going to get it. All right. And we're going to have housing and everything up on the hills because people are coming here because they don't want to pay the taxes in Bennington. They don't want to pay the taxes in Williamstown. Where are they going to go shop? They're going to go to Bennington to shop, and they're going to go to Williamstown to shop. They're not going to come to Pownell to shop. So I don't want to go on and on and on. We need to start all over with our town plan, and we need to just move forward with realistic ideas. Thank you, and I'm sorry for the confusion and everything. Bye.
Thank you, Jim.
So Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm just wondering what you suggest.
I suggest that you look for areas where we can bring in people, I mean, a corporation to come in and say, okay, we have Williamstown. People are going to shop in Williamstown. We have Williams College. We have Mass MoCA. We have a lot of things. That's in Williamstown. We have Bennington. We have a new development that's happening up in Bennington. We have a new hotel that's going to take over the Southern Vermont College and area. We have Main Street that hopefully will be developed when that does happen, and it's going to attract people. We have Albany that's very close. We have Manchester. We have lots of stuff.
What are you suggesting for Pownell is what I'm asking.
Suggesting for Pownell is that somehow you talk to the BCRC and find out where we can build apartment complexes that will house people because there is a housing shortage and people need to find a place to live for now. Otherwise, we need a place that we can find where housings can be developed into on North Pownell Road, where there's developments of little housings and stuff like that. And then we also need to just, we need to open up the box. I mean, we're just stuck in a stifled little area here, all right? And I think there's a lot that we could do if we consider ourselves a bedroom community and not.
The old school's gonna be like 50 apartments in it.
Yeah.
What?
The old school up there.
Yes.
Main Street. It's gonna be huge.
Answering the question about
I
what
know.
about,
And that's what I'm saying is we should have jumped on this a long time ago, but we've been settled with the same thing over and over again of bringing in industrial. You guys wanted to take eminent domain, I don't want to really use that word, but down on 346. They're not going to come here. They're not going to come to Pownell. Really, let's be realistic. What is going to come to Pownell?
So Jim,
I disagree with Jim's assertion that we wanted to use eminent domain down through there. I have never, I am completely against that, Jim. I don't normally speak back to you when it comes to stuff like that, but I take personal offense at that. I am very, very civic minded. And I personally take offense to that, Jim.
That's fine. That's not what I heard, but that's fine.
thanks, Jim, for your input.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks.
Yep. You have a good night. Okay, so.
All right, well, is there anybody else? for public comment?
Any other public comment? Okay, so
I'll make a motion, we
He wants
adjourn.
us to just give up.
well, let's,
I make a motion, we adjourn.
yeah, let's adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No,